Hello all, welcome again. Let's continue the types of windows here. There is one more type called cascading and unfolding. Cascading purpose is to provide the advanced option at a lower level in a complex dialog. There are some guidelines in the cascading window. Provide a command button leading to the next dialog box with a window indicator and ellipsis kind of thing. You have to provide present the additional dialog box in a cascaded form. Provide no more 2 cascades in a given path. Do not cover previous critical information, can be title bar, relevant displayed information. If independent, close the secondary window from which it was opened. There is one more called unfolding. The purpose is to provide advanced options at the same level in a complex dialog. There are some guidelines for the unfolding window also. Provide a command button with an expanding dialog symbol, 2 greater than symbols. Okay, expand to right or downward. Okay, access to additional options can be accomplished by inclusion of a command button that opens another secondary window. These multiple secondary windows needed to complete a task may be presented in 2 forms, cascading or expanding. This is the best example of a that secondary window with connect cascade button. Okay, here there is connect button also. When the user clicks that connect button, it should give me the cascading window of this kind. Cascading connect secondary window, you can see that, right? A local port, it just prompts the user to select the ports also. Okay, so cascading window keeps the original window displayed with the dependent window displayed on top, offset slightly to the right and below the original secondary window. As a cascade illustrated in the previous figures above the figures, okay, is generally used when advanced options at a lower level in a complex dialog must be presented. An indication that the dialog will be cascading is signaled by an ellipsis placed in the command button used to display the additional dialog box. Because of the confusion that can develop with too many cascades, restrict the number of cascades to no more than 2 in a given path. Do not cover information on the upper level dialog boxes that may have to be referred to, such as box title bars and other critical or relevant information. If the cascaded window is independent in its operation, close the secondary window from which it was opened and display on the new window. Unfolding. An unfolding secondary window expands to reveal additional options, a form of progressive disclosure. Unfolding windows, sometimes called expanding windows, are generally used to provide advanced options at the same level in a complex dialog. They are good alternatives when the interface contains a fixed set of options or controls that seldom need to be accessed. An unfolding window is illustrated in the figures. Okay. An indication that the dialog will be expanding is signaled by a double arrow placed in the command button used to display the additional dialog box. Expand the box to right, preferably or downward if screen space constraints exist. As an option, the same button can be used to refold the additional part of the window like this. Okay, there is a add 2 greater than symbols button, unfolding button. When the user clicks it, this is the UI we get. Okay, in Microsoft Windows operating system. Here we can see the list of printers. When the user clicks this add button. Okay, there is something called dialog box window, used for presenting brief messages. Okay, used for requesting specific transient actions, used for performing actions that take a short time to complete, used for performing actions that are not frequently changed. Command buttons to include are OK, cancel, others as necessary. Okay, these are the command buttons that we can include in the dialog boxes. Dialog boxes are used to extend and complete an interaction within a limited context. Dialog boxes are always displayed from another window, either primary or secondary or another dialog box. They may appear as a result of command button being activated or a menu choice is being selected, or they may be presented automatically by the system when a condition exists that requires users' attention or additional input. They may possess some basic action controls, close button and possibly what's this button ? But do not have a menu bar. Okay, Microsoft Windows dialog box is illustrated in this one. Okay, when the user clicks save as option in the notepad or any application, okay, it opens it up like this. Okay, user have to provide the exact path, there it can save the file. There is something called dialog box. Most windowing system provide standard dialog boxes for common functions. Some examples being open save as, and print. Many platforms also recommend a set of standard command buttons for use in the various kinds of dialog boxes such as OK, cancel, and so on. Dialog boxes are of two types, modal and modeless. As recently described, okay, we have gone through that. They may also cascade or unfold. Uses, okay, uses of dialog boxes are used for presenting brief amounts of information or to request specific transient actions. Dialog box actions will usually be those that do not occur frequently. Command buttons. Dialog boxes commonly include OK, cancel command buttons. OK and cancel buttons work best in dialog boxes that allow user to set the parameters for a particular command. OK is typically defined as the default command button when the dialog box window opens. Other command buttons may be included in a dialog box in addition to or instead of the OK or cancel button. There is a concept called property sheets or property inspector. Let's discuss that. Properties of an object in an interface can be displayed in a variety of ways. For example, the image and name of an icon in the desktop reflect specific properties of that object. So, as do other interface components such as toolbars, status bars, and even scroll bars. Secondary windows provide two other techniques for displaying properties, property sheets, and property inspectors. Now, let's discuss all these things. Property sheets and property inspectors. Okay. Used for presenting the complete set of properties for an object. We can categorize and group within a property pages as necessary. That can be used for tabbed property pages for grouping peer related property sets. The recommended size for property sheets are 252 DLUs, display units, okay, wide into 218 DLUs high as given. Command buttons to include are OK, cancel, apply, reset, others as necessary. Okay. For single property sheets, place the commands on the sheet. For tabbed property pages, place the commands outside the tabbed pages. Use, okay. A property sheet is the most common way to represent an object's complete set of properties in a secondary window. A property sheet is modeless secondary window that displays the user accessible properties of an object, properties that may be viewed but not necessarily edited. A single page property sheet is illustrated here. Date or time properties, okay, Microsoft Windows property sheet. Property pages, because there can be many properties for an object and the object's context. The categorization and grouping of properties within sets may be necessary. A technique for supporting navigation to groups of properties in a property sheet is a tabbed property page, where each set of properties is presented within the window as a separate page. Each page tab is labeled with the name of the set, okay, as shown here. Microsoft Windows property sheet, tabbed pages, okay. Here we can see font tab, character spacing, text effect as a secondary window property sheet. Now let's discuss property sheets. Command buttons. Property sheets typically allow the values for a property to be changed and then applied. Include the following common command buttons for handling the application of property changes. For common property sheet transaction buttons, use OK, cancel, and apply. A reset command button to cancel pending changes without closing the window can also be included. Other command buttons can be included in a property sheets, including a help button. If a help button seems necessary, the best solution is to simplify the window. Command buttons on tabbed property pages should be located outside of the tabbed page but still within the window. Buttons placed on a page imply that the action being performed applies only to that page. Buttons outside the pages imply the action performed applies to all the pages. This is the desired positioning because most often the tabs are considered by the user as a simple grouping navigation scheme techniques. If the properties are to be applied on a page by page basis, however, then place the command and buttons on the property pages and always in the same location on each page. When the user switches pages without selecting the command button, any property value changes for that page are applied. In this situation, it is helpful to prompt the user by displaying message box that asks whether to apply or discard any changes made. Now let's discuss property inspector. That can be used for displaying only the most common or frequent accessed object properties. Make changes dynamically. Use of the property inspectors. Display only the most common or frequently accessed properties in a property inspector. Properties of an object are displayed by using a dynamic viewer or browser that reflects the properties of the current selection. A property inspector differs from property sheet. Even when a property sheet window is modeless, the window is typically modeled with respect to the object for the properties being displayed. If the user selects another object, the property sheet continues to display the properties of the original object. A property inspector, on the other hand, always reflects the current selection. A palette window or a toolbar is used to create property inspector, as shown in the figure here. You can see. An even better alternative is to use a palette window that the user can also configure. Another control in a property inspector can be used to enable the user to display the properties of various objects in the primary window. For example, as the first control in the property inspector, include a drop-down list box that displays the name of the object being viewed. To view another object's properties within the inspector, the object is selected in the drop-down list box. Okay. Dynamic changes a user makes in a property inspector should be made dynamically. That is, the property value in the selected object should be changed as soon as the user makes the change in the related property control. The next example is here, text properties, a property inspector. Property inspectors and property sheets are not exclusive interfaces. Both can be included in an interface. The most common or frequently accessed properties can be displayed in a property inspector and the complete set in the property sheet. Multiple property inspectors can also be included, each optimized for managing certain types of objects. An interface's behavior can also be changed between that of a property sheet and that of a property inspector. A control can be provided that locks its view, making it model to the current object rather than tracking the entire selection. Now let's discuss message boxes, used for displaying a message about a particular situation or a condition. Commands button to include in message box are OK, cancel, help, yes, no, stop. Buttons to correct the action that caused the message box to be disabled. Which enables the title bar close box only if the message includes a cancel button. Designate the most frequent or least destructive option as the default command button. Use. The message box, as illustrated in the figure, is a secondary window that displays a message about a particular situation or a condition. Just the alert. Okay, message box. Commands. Okay. Typically, message box contains only command buttons with appropriate responses or choices offered to the user. The command buttons used should allow the message box interaction to be simple and efficient. Microsoft suggests providing the following. If a message requires no choices to be made but only acknowledgement, include OK button and optionally a help button. If the message requires the user to make a choice, include a command button for each option. Include OK and cancel buttons only when the user has the option of continuing or stopping the action. Use yes and no buttons when the user must decide how to continue. If these choices are too ambiguous, label the command buttons with the names of specific actions, for example, save and delete. Command buttons to correct the action that caused the message box to be displayed can also be included in a message box. For example, if the message box indicates that the user must switch to another application window to take corrective action, a button that opens that application window can also be included. Stop can be used. If cancel is used as command button in a message box, remember that to users, cancel implies that the state of process or task that started the message is being restored. If you use cancel to interrupt the process and the state cannot be restored, use a stop instead. Help. A help button can be included in a message box for messages needing more detail. This allows the message text to be more succinct. If other command buttons are needed, consider the potential increase in complexity that their inclusion will cause. Close box. Enable the title bar close box only if the message includes a cancel button, otherwise the meaning of the close operation may be ambiguous. Default. Designate the most frequent or least destructive option as the default command button. There is something called palette windows used to present a set of controls designed as resizable. Alternatively, Alternately, design them as a fixed in size also. Uses a palette window. Palette windows are modeless secondary windows that present a set of controls. As shown here, there is something called pencil, eraser, square, crop in the paint. Okay, paint application of windows. Palette windows are distinguished by their visual appearance, a collection of images, colors, and patterns. The title bar for the palette window is shorter and includes only a close button. Sizing. A palette window can be defined as fixed in size or more typically resizable by the user. Two techniques should indicate when the window is resizable: changing the pointer image to the size pointer and placing a size command in the Windows shortcut menu. Okay. Preserve the window size and position so the window can be restored if it or its associated primary window is closed and then reopened. Best example is here. Now there is something called pop-up window. Use pop-up windows to display additional information when an abbreviated form of the information is the main presentation. Textual labels for graphical controls, context-sensitive help information. Pop-up windows can be used to display additional information when an abbreviated form of the information is the main presentation technique, as illustrated here. Other examples of pop-up windows used to display contextual information are tooltips and balloon tips that provide the names for controls in the graphical toolbars. Pop-up windows are also used to provide context-sensitive help information. Pop-up windows do not contain standard secondary window components such as title bar and close button. This is the best example you can see. Thank you for watching.